Welcome to the details of those stories and more. Let's start with the FDA. Well, the Food and Drugs Authority of Ghana is advising consumers to be careful in abiding by the best before dates of processed food products in the country. According to Chief Executive Officer Delays Dakon, the dates on some of these products are questionable due to varying climates between countries and manufacture and tropics such as Ghana. This changes the true shelf life of the said products. She advised consumers to go beyond dates in checking whether or not such products are wholesome. Delays was speaking to a stakeholder meeting to deliberate on the FDA's new guidelines, especially as Christmas approaches on processed foods.
With consumers, the only way we can get to consumers is by educating them, and we do it all the time. So we'd educate consumers or people who consume these foods about best before dates, about expiry dates, and even sometimes the food may not have expired or may not even have reached its best before date, which is the thing that I keep saying about the food industry. We do not do shelf life studies, or if we do, we don't think it affects the food that you offer for sale. So sometimes you buy a product like a seasoning. I don't know whether it affects any of you. I have to keep my seasoning in the fridge because Ghana is a hot and humid country. Europe or wherever the seasoning is manufactured is cool and dry. So you notice that you buy certain seasonings, it has not even reached its best before date or expiry date, and the season has already caked. I'm sure some of you have seen it before. So sometimes even best before is questionable, because best before under our conditions may not be best before under temperate conditions. Yes? So these are some of the things that we will probably have to, in fact we already do it, we educate the consumer all the time. And we put up some bulletins. If you go to a social media platform, we are trying to educate the consumer on what best before is. But it is something that I am actually thinking that we should look at, so that we are not just bringing things from temperate regions and it has a long shelf life. When it sits in my fridge for 6 months instead of 2 years, it's gone. I taste any seasoning, right, because Maggi is solid, and it is already caked, it's already clogged, it has water in it because our country is humid, and all that affects the quality of the food. So in the near future, we're going to be looking at some of these things, because it's not just medicines that should have shelf life studies. I think the food industry also does shelf life studies. And the consumer should be educated to even look at the products they are consuming, whether the best before date has reached or it has not reached.
Well, as Christmas approaches, you want to be a bit more careful. Speaking at the same ceremony, Head of Legal Affairs at the FDA, Cynthia Nto-Dapa, says the outfit is working with retailers to ensure the Ghanaian consumer is protected. She urges them to take food storage more seriously.
This is the definition for shelf life as we have here. It means the period between production, packaging, transportation, distribution, and sale, during which a food product will remain safe and of a suitable quality for consumption, where that food is kept under recommended manufacturer's storage conditions. So that is what we mean by shelf life. We have to get to a point as a country to look at what appropriate storage conditions would mean for a country such as ours. Because if I brought olive oil from Italy and the stated conditions is cool, dry temperature, what does cool, dry temperature in Italy actually mean? It's incumbent on industry to ensure that the product you are giving to consumers is of the right quality. Because what you rely on is return business, not single sales. So I ought to be able to buy and say, when I bought from you, it was so good, I'll always buy from you. So we'll begin the work then. But we are actually asking all of industry to begin to put food where it ought to be, so that we do not have to come, always like a head teacher whipping case, because you know what it ought to be.
What the FDA wants you to look out for. Again, we have a more extensive conversation on what to look out for as we approach the Christmas festivities. So, to your messages now. This one says, you don't add... Okay, Michael from Nkwanta says, I trusted Pastor Kelvin so much, but now I'm disappointed in him. We need our money now. Michael sends a message from Nkwanta. This is Raymond from Tamale. The president said people will complain, so the ambulance should wait. The same people are talking, so why keep them wait? So why keep them waiting? Keep something that we lack as a country that can save lives, because people will talk. That's a message on the back of the ambulance, release the ambulance now hashtag. I'm Jesse from Kwapong in the Sunafo South District. I'm a teacher and a concerned citizen. He says, okay, you are an aspirant. We'll talk about the elections later. Right now, let's talk about the ambulances and also about, yes, so you send a video of the lady who is struggling, the report that we did here at JoyNews. Says, JoyNews, let the public watch this video. And you're sending it from the Upper West region, and it says to advise, we should watch this video to advise the president to distribute the ambulances. Okay, so let's see about some more messages now. Okay, what we'll do the messages, I think it's just getting a bit mixed up, but let's go back to that story earlier we played for you about the Food and Drugs Authority and what they're advising you to do. Now, the Food and Drugs Authority wants you, the consumer, to be careful as far as best before date is concerned. But why? Listen to the Executive Officer, Chief Executive Officer, Delise Dakum.
With consumers, the only way we can get to consumers is by educating them. And we do it all the time. So we'd educate consumers or people who consume these foods about best before dates, about expiry dates. And even sometimes the food may not have expired or may not even have reached its best before dates, which is the thing that I keep saying about the food industry. We do not do shelf life studies, or if we do, we don't think it affects the food that you offer for sale. So sometimes you buy a product like a seasoning. I don't know whether it affects any of you. I have to keep my seasoning in the fridge because Ghana is a hot and humid country. Europe or wherever the seasoning is manufactured is cool and dry. So you notice that you buy certain seasonings, it has not even reached its best before date or expiry date, and the season has already caked. I'm sure some of you have seen it before. So sometimes even best before is questionable, because best before under our conditions may not be best before under temperate conditions. Yes? So these are some of the things that we will probably have to, in fact, we already do it. We educate the consumer all the time. And we put up some bulletins. If you go to a social media platform, we are trying to educate the consumer on what best before is. But it is something that I am actually thinking that we should look at, so that you are not just bringing things from temperate regions and it has a long shelf life. When it sits in my fridge for 6 months instead of 2 years, it's gone. I taste my any seasoning, right, because Maggi is solid, and it is already caked, it's already clogged, it has water in it because our country is humid, and all that affects the quality of the food. So in the near future, we're going to be looking at some of these things, because it's not just medicines that should have shelf life studies. I think the food industry also does shelf life studies. And the consumer should be educated to even look at the products they are consuming, whether the best before date has reached.
Delise Dakum is Chief Executive Officer of the Food and Drugs Authority. I have here the Acting Head of Food Division of the FDA, Roderick Dade Ejay, to take us through what we really need to understand as far as best before is concerned. I mean, what really even is the difference? Mr. Dade, you're welcome. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
So the FDA wants us to be wary of the best before dates on the food that we consume. Isn't that the work of the FDA from the onset? From the beginning, shouldn't you work on that? So if the climate, you know, she says the climate is different. We understand that, but isn't that the reason why the FDA is there, to look out for those things before they come to us in the first place?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. Yes, the FDA is there for what you have said, but remember that when you talk about food safety, it's a joint, let me say, a joint action, you know, collective responsibility, yes. The consumer, the regulator. And this morning's program that we had was particularly targeted at importers, freight forwarders, retailers. Okay. You know, because when you talk about guidelines for shelf life, the idea is that is linked to the storage of the products, which I think the Chief Executive did ably, you know, explain as it is. We are doing this, for example, I mean, in the first place, to educate those who are bringing in products, whether you are manufacturing them here or whether you are importing them. If you bring the products in, you know, distribution is the next step. So we say by the time it gets into the country, there should be enough time to comfortably distribute the products, because some will be storing in warehouses, some will be moving them around, and then you need to mind the conditions under which they are stored and which they are transported. So it's a collective responsibility that we all face, but particularly the freight forwarders, the importers should take note of this. You don't keep products in store for a long time under wrong conditions and expect the product to perform as the manufacturer, has stated. So it was to enlighten all of us.
Okay.
Yes.
So this program, that the target audience, like you're making me understand, is for freight forwarders. What exactly are they supposed to do differently from what they already do?
Oh, thank you very much. We've had, at the ports, people bringing in products that, if you take the shelf life of the product, you realize that you barely have enough opportunity for it to go into circulation.
Okay.
And because you have brought it in a mass, it's like you brought us a heap of problems,
okay.
Which then you find sometimes going into what they call don't me, and
because they don't have enough time for the product to expire.
Yes.
So they just push it out and they sell it at very cheap prices.
Very cheap prices, but then it cannot really be consumed. And once you attain the best before date or the expiry date, you can imagine the manufacturer is absolved of any you can't litigate against, because the manufacturing date or from the manufacturing date to the expiry or the best before, there are definitions that are there. For example, when you're talking about the issue of best before, the idea is that this product would have the qualities, the scent, the aroma, if it is crispiness, whatever attribute that is supposed to have before the date, the product is supposed to exhibit that.
Yeah.
Immediately that deadline is, you go over that
date.
You cannot hold the manufacturer, responsible. Then also there are issues.
But that doesn't mean that on that best before, so you can have your canned product and you can still take it after the best before date, but it will not give you the best of quality.
The Food and Drugs Authority is not saying that.
It's not saying
yes,
that.
we are not saying
because
that.
I've heard that. People, and a lot of people say that. They say if it's best before, then it means that you can still eat the food after the date, except that you won't get the quality.
Read it from my lips. The best before date, the expiry date, the sell-by date, when it's up, you cannot put it on the shelf.
Okay.
That is it. You can't go into commercial business with it.
With that on
yes.
that day. Can you eat it? Assuming you've bought it already.
Well, you are in your home. What you do in your home is not...
Well, that's why...
So the Food and
That's
Drugs
why we're
Authority...
seeking advice. We're getting into Christmas.
Yes.
There will be a lot of buying and selling. And people are actually looking at the season and saying, look, everything we have now, we have to sell it now. Because this is the moment that people are buying.
You see, look, if you go into the chemistry of it, when you talk about food is a complex matrix. If you talk about medicines may be a particular active ingredient. So it's paracetamol. So there's one particular active ingredient there. When you're talking about food, you are talking about a combination of fats, oils, depending on what the food product is. Fats, oils, vitamins, carbohydrates that behave in various ways. So that's why somebody would take something and say, or no, it's 10 SAR. But we know normally that when we take that particular product within good time, we are okay. Then it also depends on how you stored it. Now, in order not to complicate issues and following international best practices, we go according to what we call the Codex Alimentarius Commission. Is this body formed by the FAO and WHO, and we go by their dictates. And some of these things are clearly spelled out. When food is manufactured, it must be kept in a particular way. It must be stored under particular conditions. That's why foods that are supposed to be eaten cold are eaten cold. Those that are supposed to be kept warm, when you go to your weddings and you're having your meals, you say this one, the soup must be kept warm. You know, it's for a particular reason.
Okay.
You know, yes, safety issues and so on are considered here.
I see. So if it's beyond the best before date, you're not supposed to eat it.
Yes, we don't expect it to be in trade. And
not us being in trade is off the table.
No, what you do in your home is your business. But you are advised, that please go by the dates and keep and store the products the way they are supposed to be. And I wish that smile would leave your face.
Okay, so what you do in your home is your business, but in order to be safe, the Food and Drugs Authority advises that you should not consume foods that have exceeded, or whose date have exceeded the best before date or the expiry date. What I heard, and which is what I was trying to clarify, is that when it's expiry date, then it's expired. But when it's best before date, then you can still eat it. So let me pick your mind on this particular thing. So when you go to the UK, for example, they export kinky from here to UK, and they have packaged the kinky and given it a certain date. When you put that kinky in a fridge, the best before dates can pass, and then you can still cook that kinky and it still tastes like kinky.
You have any experience with that?
I do.
I mean, we'll be ready to listen and learn. You know, science is science. We don't say we know everything, but you know, normally the facts that do come out in science are generally respected, and they are tested by peers over the world, and it becomes an accepted, you know, practice.
Very well.
Yes.
Very well. Now let's look at what things the FDA is advising Ghanaians to do as we go into Christmas. Usually, what are some of the issues that you've had to deal with, especially during the festive season, and how do we deal with those issues? Right.
Thank you. I think the season in itself, you know, brings that spirit of people wanting to buy and then you know, spend and have a good time. So because of that, there's a lot of demand, you know, and you know, the market responds. But in responding, it's a common thing that we have noticed, that people try to throw in things in there, things that may not be registered by the Food and Drugs Authority, and hence we think we should arm you with this information. You know, goods that are produced here in Ghana, all food products that are registered are supposed to have the Food and Drugs Registration number. You will see it reflecting something like FDA stroke, maybe DK if it's a drink, and then the numbers that may follow. So this is one sure way that, I mean, people who are buying, you know, you check and make sure. For products that are imported, they don't have the registration numbers, though they are registered. Yes. If you want to find a number, you can go onto our website.
Okay.
Yes, name the product, and then it will be, you see it. If it doesn't appear, then that product is not registered. Yeah.
And
so these are things. If it's not registered, then we cannot vouch for it, and it's illegal and wrong to deal in that. Because of that, we have a market surveillance department. Day in, day out, they are through various shops, and I think out there in the public will bear testimony that a lot of shops have received letters from us detaining items in their shop and asking them where they got them, and we follow up on such and bring them to book to make sure that the products get registered. Yes.
You indicated earlier that as we wrap up on this conversation, that there are people, the press conference or the program you had today was targeted at freight forwarders and people who import goods in. For those who import goods in, and we know that they don't have enough time to expiration, and they have imported them in any way, and they're going to do the Donkomi sales. What do you tell those people? Aren't they supposed to take those things back wherever they brought them?
Thank you. Anybody who brings in this this type of thing, unwholesome products, or I mean, just recently, I can just tell you, I mean, somebody just brought in some products and they were expired, and then said that the supplier said it was a mistake, it had been wrongfully labeled. Please, it's on its way to the dumpster.
Okay.
They were shocked. They thought that they could maybe use it for animal food. FDA, we don't promote that practice. If the product is not good enough, I mean, for the human, we don't expect you to also give it to animals because it can go through the food chain. Yeah. And so, please, people should have this message. A lot of the warehouses, those who store foods, when they don't store them under proper conditions as they are required to, and they come and say that the product is expired, so would the authority give them the permission to, process them into animal feed? Please, at the moment, the FDA's posture is that no, we will not do it. So you better make sure that you store the products properly. If it's for human consumption, store it properly and then deal with it as such.
Okay.
If you are bringing it for animal feed, bring it first in for animal feed and it will be used as such. We will not want to the situation where you say a product is expired and therefore can it be used for animal feed. Yes. And also we want to send a very strong caution. For some people who think when the product is getting close to expiry, then they deface it and then go on to because we've had some issues, and those companies that have gone through that, they know they are suffering heavily for it. So please, the public should be assured that the FDA is on top of issues, and we really listen. We listen to you through our social handles. If you've got any information, if you see anything going out there, if you see premises that are manufacturing sachet water and other things that are not registered, please do, like the president said, don't be a spectator. Send the information to us and we would follow up on it.
So what really is the FDA going to do for Christmas? What is the FDA's plan to protect the consumer?
Oh, the FDA's plan already is rolled up. It's a year-long thing. We have our market surveillance department in the various regions. They are always on the move from shop to shop. We've zoned the Accra and the other regions, and we have teams that visit the shops. Randomly we pick, we zone. We are making sure that it is a routine program that is going on. Through radio programs, through television such as this, we also educate people what to watch out for. So this Christmas season, and even not whether Christmas or not, canned products, when you buy, make sure that they are not bloated. Bloated cans are one of the things you should immediately move away from. It's a sign of microbial activity that is going on in the product. If you press the can and you get what we call the TikTok sound, you press the move away from that. Please inform us. There are products that are dented, cans that are dented, that are showing rust. Please, you should know that the lacquer is broken. Move away from such. Please don't buy things in the sun. We know we are in a sunny area. We know people like to bring things out there. All of these things affect the shelf life of the product, the shelf life that we're talking about this one. So please don't patronize such things. If you do that, a lot of the retailers will learn the lessons and then do the expected.
Right thing. Okay. Thank you very much for coming, Mr. Dade Ejay. He is the acting head of food division at the Food and Drugs Authority. What he's done today is to help us understand how the FDA operates as far as protecting us from the food that we eat. He says that they're looking at those who import things in, and they're surely sending to the dumpster anything that has expiry dates that comes in. He also talks about the things you should look out for: dented cans, which you may know already, but by way of refreshers, you should not go for bloated cans, dented cans, rusty cans, etc. Thank you very much for coming, Mr. Dade.